Apparently, finding mysterious designer undergarments that definitely aren't yours in your husband's SUV isn't what therapists recommend as a marriage enrichment activity. Welcome to my perfectly normal Tuesday afternoon that transformed into the season finale of My Husband's Secret Life, a show I never auditioned for, but somehow became the unwilling star of. My name is Nell Parker. I'm 38, and until last week, I thought I was living the suburban American dream in Scottsdale, Arizona. Nice house with a pool we can barely afford, 2 kids with soccer schedules that require NASA-level coordination, and a husband of 12 years who I thought was just going through a midlife crisis with his sudden interest in fitness. Spoiler alert, the fitness had a name. Sienna Hartley, 29, personal trainer, size small. Let me back up and paint this disaster in proper American Technicolor. I'm a dental hygienist. Yes, the person who makes you feel guilty about not flossing while having her fingers in your mouth. My husband Graham is an account manager at a software company, the kind of job where he wears khakis every day and complains about corporate synergy over our Costco rotisserie chicken dinners. We have 2 kids, Madison, who's 10 going on 16 with her TikTok obsession, and Connor, 7, who collects rocks and dead bugs with concerning enthusiasm. Our marriage wasn't perfect, whose is, but I thought we were solid. The kind of couple who might passive-aggressively load the dishwasher to make a point but still remembered each other's coffee orders, and occasionally had date nights at Olive Garden when my mom would take the kids. 12 years of building a life together, surviving sleepless newborn nights, financial stress, and that phase where Graham tried growing a beard that made him look like a lost member of Duck Dynasty. Then came last Tuesday. I was driving our Honda Pilot, the quintessential, I've surrendered to suburbia vehicle, and reached under the passenger seat for the pack of gum I keep there. Instead, my hand touched something plastic. A shopping bag. Victoria's Secret, to be specific. Now, if my husband had been buying lingerie for me, it would have been 1. The first time in about 3 years, and 2. A complete surprise since Graham usually gives me Amazon gift cards for special occasions with the romance of a utility bill. I pulled out the bag, and there it was. A red lace bra and matching thong with the tag still attached. Size small. I wear a medium on my most optimistic days after aggressive Spanx application. Well, this is awkward, I said to absolutely no one in the car. My brain started doing the mental gymnastics that wives have perfected since the dawn of marriage. Maybe it's for me, but he got the size wrong. Perhaps it's for his sister's birthday. Could our son be going through a very specific and concerningly adult phase of exploration? But the rational part of my brain, the part that knows Graham still wears underwear with holes in it because they're still functional, knew exactly what this was. I did what any reasonable adult would do. I drove to the Starbucks drive-thru, ordered a venti cold brew with extra shots, and parked to have my meltdown with appropriate caffeine support. Then I pulled out my phone and went full CSI, Scottsdale. First stop, our joint credit card app, and there it was, glowing like a radioactive betrayal on my screen. Victoria's Secret, 187.43 from 2 days ago. The same day, Graham told me he was hitting the gym hard after work. $187 for some scraps of red fabric that wouldn't even fully cover a sandwich. The financial betrayal almost hurt as much as the actual betrayal. Almost. Next level investigation. Google Maps timeline. We had location sharing turned on years ago when Graham went on a business trip to Boston, and I was convinced he'd somehow get lost between the hotel and conference center. The man once got lost in our local Target. I clicked on his timeline for the day of the purchase. The little blue dot didn't show him at 24-Hour Fitness. It showed him at Scottsdale Fashion Square Mall. Unless they'd installed squat racks next to the Cinnabon, he'd lied about working out. By now, I'd progressed from shocked to furious to eerily calm, that dangerous state of tranquility where suburban moms plan perfect crimes. I went back through his social media activity, something I'd never bothered to monitor because I assumed he just used it to share unfunny memes and argue about sports with his college buddies. That's when I noticed a pattern. Graham had been systematically liking and occasionally commenting on photos posted by someone named Sienna Hartley. Her profile picture showed a tanned, toned blonde in workout gear. flashing perfect teeth and holding a protein shake like it contained the elixir of youth. I clicked on her profile. Public, thank God. Or thank the narcissism that made her want maximum followers. Sienna Hartley, 29, personal trainer at Elite Fitness, Graham's gym, lover of sunsets, green smoothies, and inspirational quotes about becoming your best self. Her photos were a shrine to fitness culture. Workout videos, meal prep containers arranged like color swatches, and the occasional philosophical caption about pushing limits that was probably meant to be about deadlifts, but took on a whole new meaning in my current situation. I scrolled further and further, my cold brew long forgotten. Then I hit the jackpot. A photo from 3 weeks ago. Graham was in the background of a group picture at some gym event, looking at Sienna with the same expression Connor has when staring at the Christmas toy catalog. Then I checked mutual connections. Bingo. Sienna was friends with Amber, Graham's cousin. The family connection. How they probably met. Amber, who'd been telling Graham he should get in shape for his 40th birthday next year. I kept scrolling through Sienna's life, displayed in perfectly filtered squares. Her most recent post stopped me cold. A photo of Thanksgiving preparation, tagged at her mother's house in Tempe. The caption read, "Prepping for the best Thanksgiving feast with family. Mom's famous turkey and all the fixings. Blessed, family time, Thanksgiving." I clicked on the location tag and found her mother's profile. Doris Hartley, 64, church volunteer coordinator, baker of award-winning pies, and grandmother to Sienna's 3 siblings' children. Her profile was also public and full of community events, church functions, and proud family photos. The perfect all-American family preparing for the perfect all-American holiday. That's when it hit me. The perfect nuclear revenge. I'd spent years cleaning other people's teeth, listening to their problems while they couldn't respond because my hands were in their mouths. I'd mastered the art of the polite smile while hearing about Janet's cruise vacation or Bob's golf game. I'd perfected patience. I'd become an expert at making others comfortable while they were vulnerable. But now it was time to use those skills differently. For 3 days, I planned. I went to work, I made the kids' lunches, I washed Graham's clothes and made pleasant conversation about his workouts. I watched him text under the table at dinner and pretended not to notice. I bought a classy black dress that made me look like I'd lost 10 pounds overnight. I did my hair the way the cute stylist at the salon said would frame my face better. I put on makeup that didn't come from the drugstore for once. Then I took that red lingerie set, carefully folded it, and placed it in a beautiful gift box with a gold ribbon. I wrote a simple card. "Sienna, you left this in my husband's car. I thought you might want it back. Best wishes. Nell Parker, Graham's wife." Oi. On Thanksgiving Day, at precisely 6:15 p.m., I drove to the address I'd found through some light Facebook stalking. I stood on the porch of a tidy suburban home with a fall wreath on the door, turkey-shaped decorations visible through the window, and the sound of family conversation drifting outside. I rang the doorbell, gift box in hand, wearing my best dental hygienist smile, the one that says, "This won't hurt a bit," right before it absolutely does. The door swung open to reveal a woman in her 60s wearing a festive turkey-themed apron and a smile that screamed, "I bake cookies for the neighborhood kids." Doris Hartley, I presumed, the matriarch of this Norman Rockwell painting come to life. "Hello there," she greeted me with genuine warmth. "Can I help you?" I maintained my professional smile, the one that's gotten me through countless interactions with patients who swear they floss daily despite the small ecosystem developing between their teeth. "Hi, Mrs. Hartley. I'm Nell Parker." I paused, letting the moment breathe like a fine wine, or in this case, like a vinegar about to be thrown in someone's face. "I'm so sorry to interrupt your Thanksgiving, but Sienna left something important in my husband Graham's car, and I thought it would be appropriate to return it personally." Mrs. Hartley's eyebrows lifted slightly, but her hospitality training kicked in. "Oh, how thoughtful. Please, come in for a moment. We're just about to serve dinner, but I won't stay long," I assured her, stepping into the entryway that smelled like pumpkin pie and family traditions. "I just wanted to make sure she got this." The living room opened up before me like a Thanksgiving edition of Better Homes and Gardens. A large dining table set with actual cloth napkins, not the paper ones I use for fancy dinners. A turkey glistening on a serving platter. And around the table, the entire Hartley clan. Grandparents, siblings with spouses, adorable children in holiday outfits that hadn't been stained yet with cranberry sauce. And there she was, Sienna, even more flawless in person, wearing a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than my entire Target wardrobe. Her blonde hair cascaded over her shoulders in the kind of waves I'd tried and failed to achieve with my straightener. She was mid-laugh at something, but when she saw me, her expression froze faster than a Midwest lake in January. The room quieted as all eyes turned to the unexpected guest. I could almost hear the record scratch from every movie scene where things are about to go spectacularly wrong. "Everyone, I'm sorry, what was your name again?" Mrs. Hartley asked, her hostess training still valiantly trying to salvage the situation. "Nell Parker, Graham Parker's wife." I smiled at Sienna, whose face had now achieved the color of the cranberry sauce on the table. "Graham and I have been married for 12 years. We have 2 wonderful children." I could see the exact moment when Sienna's brain caught up with what was happening. Her eyes darted to the gift box in my hands, then back to my face, then desperately around the room as if searching for an emergency exit that might materialize in her mother's living room. "Sienna, honey, do you know Mrs. Parker?" her mother asked, confusion evident. An older man who had to be Mr. Hartley stood up from the head of the table. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I said cheerfully. "I just wanted to return something Sienna accidentally left behind. It seemed too valuable to mail." I stepped forward and placed the beautifully wrapped box on the table. The gold ribbon gleamed under the dining room chandelier like a beacon of impending doom. "It's from Victoria's Secret," I added helpfully. "I believe it cost $187.43. My husband's credit card statement was very specific." The silence that followed was so complete, you could hear the pie cooling on the windowsill. Sienna looked like she might actually dissolve into the hardwood floor. A fitness instructor suddenly unable to engage her core muscles enough to remain upright. "I don't understand," Mrs. Hartley said, looking between me and her daughter. "Sienna, what is this about?" Sienna's brother, who looked about my age, started to get that dawning comprehension on his face. His wife beside him whispered something in his ear, and his eyes widened. "Open it," I suggested gently to Mrs. Hartley. I think Sienna would want her things back. Like a woman in a trance, Mrs. Hartley untied the gold ribbon and lifted the lid of the box. The red lace lingerie set lay there in all its scandalous glory, the size small tag prominently visible, along with my handwritten note. Mrs. Hartley's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, my word." Mr. Hartley leaned over to see what had caused his wife's distress, then straightened up so fast I thought he might pull something. His face flushed deep red. Not with embarrassment, but with the kind of righteous anger that only comes from a father who's just discovered his daughter isn't the angel he thought she was. "Sienna Elizabeth Hartley," he thundered in the voice I imagined he used during his Sunday school lessons. "What is the meaning of this?" Sienna finally found her voice, though it came out as a strangled whisper. "Daddy, I can explain. Explain why another woman's husband bought you." "Undergarments?" Her mother cut in. The word undergarments pronounced as if it were a particularly vulgar profanity. Sienna's sister-in-law, a woman with a practical bob and judgment in her eyes, pulled her 2 small children closer as if to shield them from the moral corruption unfolding at the Thanksgiving table. "Maybe I should go," Sienna's brother's teenage daughter said, clearly delighted by this unexpected drama and already pulling out her phone. I could practically see the family group chat notifications blowing up across Tempe. "No one is going anywhere until we get to the bottom of this," Mr. Hartley declared. I decided this was my moment to add just a sprinkle more chaos to the situation. "Oh, I should mention. Graham told me he was at the gym when he bought these. Apparently, leg day now includes a stop at Victoria's Secret. Fascinating workout routine." Mrs. Hartley turned to her daughter with tears forming in her eyes. "Is this true? Are you involved with a married man? With children?" The grandparents at the table were whispering frantically to each other, while Sienna's other brother was suddenly very interested in his mashed potatoes, sculpting them into a mountain to avoid making eye contact with anyone. "How could you?" Mrs. Hartley continued, her voice rising. "After all we taught you about faith and family values? I'm the chairwoman of the church's marriage ministry, for heaven's sake." The irony was richer than the gravy boat being passed around the table moments before I arrived. Sienna finally managed to speak, her voice shaky. "Mom, Dad, this isn't how it looks. It looks like my husband bought you expensive lingerie while telling me he was working out," I interjected helpfully. "Also, he charged it to our family credit card, the one we use for our children's expenses. Madison needs braces next year, so every little bit helps." Sienna's youngest niece, who couldn't have been more than 6, chose that moment to ask in a piercing voice, "Auntie Sienna, why did someone else's husband buy you underwear?" And that's when Sienna's sister spit out her wine in a spectacular spray across the white tablecloth, creating a Rorschach test that looked remarkably like the map of a life imploding. "Children, go to the living room," Mr. Hartley commanded, and the younger ones were ushered away by a teenage cousin who was clearly experiencing the best Thanksgiving of her life. I checked my watch. I'd been here exactly 7 minutes and had managed to dismantle the Hartley family Thanksgiving, Sienna's reputation, and possibly her relationship with her parents in less time than it takes to microwave a TV dinner. "Well, I should be going," I said pleasantly, as if I'd just dropped off a casserole. "My children are waiting at home, our children. Graham's and mine." "Wait," Mrs. Hartley said, suddenly remembering her manners even in the midst of family catastrophe. "How did you know where to find us?" I smiled the smile I give patients right before telling them they need a root canal. "Sienna posts everything on Instagram, your Thanksgiving preparations, your address, the time dinner would be served. She's very thorough with her social media presence, almost as thorough as she was with my husband." With that parting shot, I turned to leave, the sounds of family discord erupting behind me like a volcano that had been dormant for too long. As I walked to my car, I could hear Mr. Hartley's booming voice through the still-open front door. "In my house! On Thanksgiving! The Lord is testing me!" The Honda Pilot felt different as I drove away from the Hartley family meltdown, lighter somehow, as if the weight of humiliation I'd just delivered had physically lifted my SUV a few inches off the road. I cranked up Kelly Clarkson's Stronger to a volume that would have made Madison roll her eyes and Connor cover his ears. But they weren't with me. They were at my mother's house, blissfully unaware that their father was currently starring in the suburban version of every country song about cheating. I'd dropped them off earlier with the excuse that Mommy and Daddy need to have some grown-up time. My mother had winked and said something about keeping the spark alive. If only she knew the kind of spark I was planning, the kind that burns entire lives to the ground. I was halfway home when my phone erupted with notifications. Graham calling, Graham texting, Graham apparently discovering that his secret wasn't so secret anymore. I connected the Bluetooth and let his voice fill the car. "Nell, where are you? I just got like 15 texts from Sienna. What did you do?" The panic in his voice was delicious, like the first sip of wine after a particularly brutal day of cleaning plaque off the teeth of complaining patients. "Hi, honey," I replied, my voice sugary sweet. "How's your Thanksgiving going? Did you enjoy your workout today?" "Nell, what did you do?" Each word landed like a stone dropping into a very deep well. "I returned some property to its rightful owner. Victoria's Secret has a no-return policy on underwear, you know. Hygiene concerns." I paused at a red light, checking my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked good. Really good. By the way, Sienna's mom makes an impressive turkey. The little bit I saw before everything went to pieces anyway. "You went to her parents' house?" His voice had reached a pitch I'd only heard once before, when he found a spider in the shower and screamed like he was auditioning for a horror movie. "You should call her," I suggested helpfully. "She might need emotional support right now. Her father looked like he was about to have a coronary, and her mother was questioning every parenting decision she's ever made." The Thanksgiving table discussion took quite a turn from "pass the gravy" to "why is my daughter a homewrecker?" "I'm coming home. Now." The phone went dead. Perfect. Exactly as planned. I pulled into our driveway and hurried inside. I had maybe 20 minutes before Graham would arrive, and I needed to be ready. This was just Act 2 of my carefully orchestrated revenge symphony. While waiting, I decided to check Sienna's Instagram. Her last post from this morning showed her perfect manicure against a pumpkin pie with the caption, "Thankful for new beginnings. Boss blessed Dostier family first." The irony was thick enough to spread on toast. Then my phone pinged with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Amber, Graham's cousin. I just heard what happened from Sienna. I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was seeing Graham. I thought they just knew each other from the gym. Call me if you need anything." Interesting. So Amber hadn't been the matchmaker after all. She was collateral damage in Graham's web of lies. I saved her number. Having allies in the family might prove useful. My phone buzzed again. A text from one of the dental assistants at my practice. "OMG Nell. Sienna Hartley just set her Instagram to private. Everyone's talking about what happened at Thanksgiving dinner. Tracy's sister-in-law is neighbors with Sienna's cousin and heard everything. Call me." Small towns masquerading as cities. Gotta love them. Scottsdale's gossip network moved faster than our internet connection. I heard Graham's car pull up in the driveway. Showtime. When he burst through the door, he looked like he'd aged 5 years in the past hour. His face was flushed, his hair disheveled, and he was still wearing the festive sweater his mother had given him last Christmas that made him look like a walking advertisement for candy canes. "Have you lost your mind?" he hissed, closing the door behind him and checking to make sure the neighbors weren't witnessing his meltdown through our bay windows. "Interesting choice of opening line," I replied, calmly sipping the tea I'd made while waiting. I was expecting maybe, "I'm sorry for betraying our marriage," or "Please forgive me for buying another woman lingerie with our family credit card." But sure, let's go with, "Have you lost your mind?" Very original. "You humiliated Sienna in front of her entire family, on Thanksgiving." I set my tea down with exaggerated care. "Fascinating that your first concern is for her embarrassment, not for, say, the fact that you've been cheating on your wife of 12 years and the mother of your children." Graham ran his hands through his hair. A nervous habit from college that appeared whenever he was caught in a lie, like the time he claimed he'd been studying when he was actually at a bar watching the Super Bowl. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because I think you've been sleeping with your 29-year-old personal trainer while telling me you're getting in shape for your 40th birthday. I think you charged lingerie for her on our family credit card, the same card we use for Connor's asthma medication. I think you've been living a double life and assumed I was too busy with the kids and work to notice. We need to calm down and discuss this rationally," he said, switching tactics. The account manager in him was emerging, the one who smoothed over client concerns with corporate jargon and empty promises. "Rationally? You want rational? Okay, let's be rational." I stood up and walked to our home office. Graham followed, confusion written across his face like the PowerPoint presentations he was always working on. I opened my laptop and turned it to face him. On the screen was a spreadsheet, meticulously labeled, color-coded, and organized in the way I tracked our family finances. But this wasn't our budget. This was something else entirely. "What am I looking at?" he asked, squinting at the screen. "This, dear Graham, is what I like to call Exhibit A for our divorce proceedings." I smiled pleasantly. "It's a comprehensive record of your affair with Sienna, with timestamps, locations, credit card charges, and discrepancies in your stories about where you were versus where your phone's location actually showed you were." His face went from flushed to pale faster than our property taxes had increased last year. You've been tracking me?" "No, you've been tracking yourself. Your Google timeline, our shared credit card app, your very public Instagram likes on Sienna's photos, the gym check-ins that mysteriously align with her personal training schedule she posts online. I just connected the very obvious dots." I scrolled through the spreadsheet. "Did you know you haven't actually been to a real gym workout in approximately 6 weeks? Yet somehow you've spent $340 at the juice bar there. Must be very thirsty work, watching Sienna demonstrate squats." "This is invasion of privacy!" he sputtered, the indignation of the guilty flooding his voice. I laughed, actually laughed, and it felt wonderful. Privacy? In a marriage? That's rich coming from the man who once insisted we share our email passwords because couples shouldn't have secrets. Remember that? It was right after I found those messages from your college ex-girlfriend, and you swore it was just catching up. Graham collapsed onto our office chair, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. What do you want, Nell? And there it was, the million-dollar question. What did I want? Revenge? Yes, and I'd gotten the first taste of it at the Hartley household. But that was just the appetizer. I wanted the main course. I want you to look at the second tab of that spreadsheet, I said quietly. He clicked over, and his eyes widened as he scanned the document. This is everything we own. Correct. Our assets, accounts, property, investments, everything. Notice anything interesting about the distribution column? He scrolled down, his face growing increasingly distressed. You've allocated 70% to yourself, plus primary custody of the children, the house, and the Honda Pilot, which, by the way, needs new brake pads. You might want to handle that before I take ownership. This is insane. No court would— Actually, I interrupted. According to Patricia, you remember her, my patient who happens to be one of the top divorce attorneys in Arizona? This is a rather generous offer considering the documented infidelity, the misuse of family funds, and the fact that I have evidence you took Sienna to our family cabin in Flagstaff last month when you told me you were at a team-building retreat. Graham's head snapped up. How did you— The cabin security cameras send alerts to my phone too, genius. I saw you arrive with her on October 12th at 7:43 p.m. I have the footage, all of it. I hadn't actually watched more than the arrival. Some things you can't unsee, but he didn't need to know that. I made a mistake, he whispered, finally dropping the indignation act. I got caught up in— She was giving me attention, making me feel young again. Save the midlife crisis explanation for your therapist, I said. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign these papers. I pulled a manila folder from the desk drawer. Then you're going to pack an overnight bag and stay at the Extended Stay America off the highway. I've already booked you a room. Tomorrow, you'll return at noon to explain to Madison and Connor why Daddy won't be living at home anymore. You've thought of everything, he said, a mixture of defeat and something like reluctant admiration in his voice. I smiled. I've had 12 years of managing our family's entire life while you focused on your career and apparently your extracurricular activities. Planning comes naturally to me. As I watched Graham trudge upstairs to pack, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not even anger anymore, but a strange sense of calm, the kind that comes with knowing exactly who you are and what you deserve. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Kids are fine. Want me to keep them overnight? I texted back. Yes, please. Things are going exactly according to plan. The next day dawned with the kind of pristine clarity that only comes after emotional hurricanes. I'd slept better than I had in months, sprawled diagonally across our king-sized bed, a small liberty that felt revolutionary after years of sticking to my side. I woke up early, made coffee, and reviewed my battle plan for the day. Graham would be returning at noon to talk to the kids, who were coming home from my mother's at 11. That gave me 3 hours to execute Phase 3, what I like to call the financial reckoning. I opened my laptop and logged into our bank accounts, investment portfolios, and retirement funds. Before Graham had left for the Extended Stay America, which, based on his expression, might as well have been called Extended Stay in Purgatory, he'd signed the papers I'd prepared, including authorization for me to make certain financial changes. First, I transferred his portion of our emergency fund, minus the cost of Madison's upcoming braces and Connor's summer asthma camp, to a new account in my name only. Next, I paid off my car and both our credit cards from our joint savings. Then I contacted our investment advisor to begin the process of dividing our retirement accounts per the agreement. By 10:30, I'd effectively secured our financial future, mine and the kids anyway. Graham would keep his 401k and enough to start over, but the days of him having control over our family finances were officially over. Like his youth, his trustworthiness, and apparently his ability to hide lingerie properly. At 11 sharp, my mother's Subaru pulled into the driveway. I watched through the window as Madison stepped out, head down, probably texting her friends. Connor bounded out next, clutching what appeared to be a new rock for his collection. My mother followed, carrying their overnight bags and wearing her "I have opinions about your life choices" expression. "How are you holding up, honey?" she asked as soon as the kids ran upstairs to their rooms. "Surprisingly well," I answered truthfully. It's amazing how quickly 12 years of marriage can reorganize itself when you discover red lingerie that isn't yours. My mother's lips tightened. "Graham called your father this morning." That was unexpected. "And?" "Your father told him he's lucky you didn't set his clothes on fire in the front yard." She smiled grimly. Then he hung up on him. Retired military fathers have a wonderful way of cutting through nonsense. "Did Dad mention if Graham tried to defend himself?" "Apparently he said something about a temporary lapse in judgment, and your father asked if he'd temporarily forgotten he had a wife and 2 children for the past several months." She patted my hand. "Need me to stay for the talk with the kids?" I shook my head. "No, this is something Graham and I need to handle together. One last co-parenting moment before the new normal begins." After she left, I called the kids downstairs. "Dad's coming over soon to talk to you both about some changes happening in our family." Madison looked up from her phone with sudden interest. "Are we getting a pool?" "Tyler's family just got a pool with color-changing lights." "No, not a pool." I sat them both down on the couch. "It's something more serious." Connor hugged his rock closer. "Is Dad sick?" "No, sweetie. Dad's healthy. Physically, anyway." Morally was another question entirely. The doorbell rang at exactly noon. Say what you will about Graham Parker, but the man was punctual. For important meetings and apparently for affair scheduling. He looked terrible. The kind of terrible that comes from sleeping on a hotel mattress that's seen too many traveling salesmen and not enough deep cleaning. His eyes were red-rimmed, his clothes wrinkled, and he'd missed a spot shaving. "Good. Come in," I said formally, as if he were a door-to-door salesman rather than the man who'd seen me give birth twice. The kids ran to him with their usual enthusiasm. For their sake, I maintained a neutral expression rather than the "your father is a walking disappointment" face I'd been practicing in the mirror. "Why don't we all sit down?" I suggested after the initial hugs. "Dad has something important to tell you." Graham shot me a look that clearly said, "I thought we were doing this together." But I returned a smile that said, "You created this mess. You can start cleaning it up." "Madison Connor," he began, his voice cracking slightly. "Your mom and I have decided that I am going to be living somewhere else for a while." Madison's phone dropped to her lap, a miracle in itself. "Are you getting divorced?" Leave it to a 10-year-old to cut straight to the point. I'd swear she got that from my side of the family. "Yes," I answered when Graham seemed to choke on the word. "We are getting divorced." Connor's lower lip trembled. "But why? Don't you love each other anymore?" Graham looked like a man facing a firing squad. "Sometimes adults make mistakes," he said, choosing his words carefully. "I made a very big mistake that hurt your mom a lot." "What did you do?" Madison demanded, suddenly every inch the protective daughter. Graham looked to me for help. I raised an eyebrow. "You dug this hole, buddy." "I wasn't honest with your mom. I broke promises that I made to her when we got married." Madison's eyes narrowed in a way that reminded me eerily of my own mother. "You cheated, didn't you? Like Olivia's dad did with their babysitter." The accuracy of her assessment left Graham speechless. I stepped in, putting my arm around Connor, who had started to sniffle. "Yes, Madison. Dad had a relationship with someone else. That's why we can't be married anymore." "Is she prettier than Mom?" Madison asked, directing a glare at her father that would have made lesser men crumble. "No one is prettier than your mom," Graham answered, and for a brief moment I almost remembered why I'd married him. Almost. The conversation continued with Graham explaining the new living arrangements, visitation schedules, and reassuring the kids repeatedly that none of this was their fault, and both of us still loved them more than anything. After an emotionally exhausting hour, Graham left with promises to call that evening and see them the next day. Connor clung to me, while Madison stomped to her room and slammed the door, a preview of the teenage years lurking just around the corner. Just as Graham was pulling out of the driveway, a sleek black BMW pulled up behind him. A woman in an impeccable pantsuit emerged, carrying a leather portfolio. Patricia Wells, divorce attorney extraordinaire and my Thursday 2 p.m. dental patient for the past 6 years. Graham's face as he recognized her was worth every cent of her $400 hourly rate. He drove away with the defeated slouch of a man who knew he was outmaneuvered. Right on time, I greeted her at the door. Always. She smiled professionally. Did he sign the preliminary papers? Every page, I confirmed, leading her to the dining room where I'd set up all the documentation. Excellent. And how did the children take it? About as well as can be expected. Madison figured it out immediately. Connor's confused but resilient. Patricia nodded. Children are surprisingly adaptable. Now let's make sure your financial security is locked down tighter than my mother's recipe for key lime pie. For the next 2 hours, we finalized documents, made calls, and secured my position. By the time Patricia left, I had transformed from soon-to-be divorced mom to independent woman with a legally bulletproof future. I was making dinner when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Doris Hartley. I got your number from your husband's cousin Amber. I want to apologize for my daughter's behavior and let you know that in our house, we don't condone homewrecking. Sienna has been asked to find another living situation and reflect on her choices. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call. P.S. I've removed her as co-chair of the church's youth committee. I saved the number. Oddly touched by this gesture from a woman whose Thanksgiving I'd spectacularly ruined. Another text came in, this time from my dental office manager. Just heard Sienna Hartley was let go from Elite Fitness after 3 clients, all married women, complained about her training methods with their husbands. Your Thanksgiving surprise is the talk of every salon in Scottsdale. See you Monday. P.S. We're all on your side. I smiled as I stirred the pasta sauce. The universe has a way of balancing its books. And sometimes, it helps to give the universe a little nudge in the right direction. My phone rang again. Graham. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever crisis he was having could wait until tomorrow. Tonight was for me and the kids. Our first dinner is what the divorce paperwork clinically called the newly structured family unit. But I had a better name for it. The beginning of our next chapter. 6 months can change everything. Half a year since the Thanksgiving lingerie incident, as my dental assistants now reverently refer to it, and life has rearranged itself into something I never imagined. Something better. Spring in Scottsdale brings desert blooms, tourists fleeing colder states, and in my case, the final divorce decree arriving via certified mail. I signed for the envelope wearing the same black dress I'd worn to deliver that gift box to the Hartley family dinner. Poetic symmetry, even if I was the only one who appreciated it. The terms were exactly as Patricia and I had outlined. Primary custody, the house, 70% of our assets, and child support that would ensure Madison could get both braces and the summer art camp she suddenly couldn't live without. Graham got what Graham deserved. Supervised visitation until he completed the court-mandated parenting classes. Turns out judges frown upon fathers who introduce affair partners to their children without consulting the mother. His 401k, and the cabin in Flagstaff that I never wanted anyway. Too many mosquitoes, not enough wine refrigerators. I was arranging the divorce papers in my life reconstruction binder when Madison wandered into the kitchen. "Is that from Dad's lawyer?" she asked, peering at the official seal. "Yes, the divorce is officially final." I closed the binder, studying my daughter's face for signs of distress. Instead, she nodded thoughtfully. "Good. You smile more now." From the mouths of almost preteens. "Do I?" "Yeah. Before, you used to do that fake smile that didn't reach your eyes, like when Mrs. Peterson brings her yappy dog to her appointments, and you pretend you think it's cute." I laughed. "That obvious, huh?" "Mom, everyone knows you hate small dogs, just like everyone knew Dad was being shady with his phone for months." She grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl. "Connor and I talked about it. We're glad you're not sad anymore." My throat tightened. "When did you get so wise?" She shrugged with elaborate casualness. "Probably around the time Dad tried to convince us that his new apartment's swimming pool makes up for him missing Connor's science fair." She bit into her apple. "It doesn't, by the way." After she left, I sat at our kitchen island, my kitchen island now, and reflected on the unexpected gifts that had come from Graham's betrayal. First, self-respect. I'd always prided myself on being forgiving, accommodating, understanding. Turns out those qualities taken too far become doormat behavior. The day I walked into the Hartley family Thanksgiving with that lingerie box was the day I reclaimed something I hadn't even realized was missing. Second, community. The Scottsdale Mom Mafia, as my office staff called them, had rallied around me with unexpected ferocity. Meal trains, childcare offers, and most importantly, the social exile of both Graham and Sienna from any establishment more upscale than a gas station convenience store. Third, freedom. The freedom to eat ice cream straight from the container without Graham's comments about portion control. The freedom to watch serial killer documentaries instead of endless sports games. The freedom to rediscover who Nell Parker was before she became Mrs. Graham Parker. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Girls' night, Marcella's house, 7 p.m. Another unexpected gift. Actual friendships with women I'd previously only known as Tyler's mom or Madison's friend's mother. Turns out nothing bonds women faster than helping one of their own rise from the ashes of a cheating husband's dumpster fire. Speaking of Graham, he'd settled into his new role as weekend dad with all the enthusiasm of a man assigned community service. He'd recently been promoted at work, apparently having fewer family obligations freed up time for corporate ladder climbing, and had taken to sending the kids elaborate gifts that I strongly suspected were chosen by his administrative assistant. And Sienna? Last I heard, she'd moved to Los Angeles to pursue fitness influencer fame. Her Instagram still featured inspirational quotes about rising above negativity and finding your authentic path, though the comments section suggested people hadn't quite forgotten her role in breaking up a family. The internet has a long memory, especially for women who buy their lingerie with other women's husbands' credit cards. As for me, I'd gotten a promotion too, from hygienist to practice manager, with a salary increase that made Graham's child support more of a nice bonus than a necessity. I'd started taking weekend photography classes, joined a book club that actually discussed the books, and rediscovered my pre-marriage passion for hiking. Last weekend, I'd climbed Camelback Mountain for the first time in years, texting a summit selfie to my new group chat named Divorce Glow-Up Committee. Connor appeared in the kitchen doorway, interrupting my thoughts. Mom, can Tyler come over to see my new rock collection display? Sure, honey. I'll text his mom. Thanks. Oh, and Dad called. He said he might be late picking us up tomorrow because of a work thing. Connor shrugged. I told him it's okay because we're going to Aunt Jenna's pool afterward anyway. My sister Jenna, another relationship that had strengthened post-divorce. Her pool was bigger than the one at Graham's apartment complex, a fact the kids never tired of pointing out to their father. As Connor ran off to organize his precious rocks, I opened a bottle of wine. Not the cheap stuff Graham always bought, but the good Cabernet I'd developed a taste for on my recent girls' trip to Napa. I poured myself a generous glass and stepped out onto the back patio. The Arizona sunset painted the sky in vibrant oranges and pinks, the perfect backdrop for contemplation. If someone had told me last Thanksgiving that I'd be sitting here now, divorced, thriving, genuinely happy, I would have thought they were delusional. But life is funny that way. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best beginnings. Sometimes you need to open a box of red lingerie to close the chapter on a life that was never quite right. And sometimes, just sometimes, revenge isn't served cold after all. It's served at Thanksgiving dinner, wrapped in gold ribbon, with a side of life-changing clarity. Here's the thing about coming home early. It's either a blessing or a curse, and there's no in-between. Apparently, mine was the listen to your husband plan your replacement like he's ordering a new car variety. Fun times. My name is Thea Ramsey. I'm 36, a corporate tax attorney in downtown Chicago, and I just discovered that my marriage was basically a limited-time offer with an expiration date I wasn't aware of. My husband, Barrett, is 39, real estate developer, CrossFit enthusiast, and part-time Judas, apparently. We'd been married for 8 years. No kids by mutual agreement, or so I thought. Turns out, it was just his agreement. The dude wanted flexibility for other ventures. It was a Wednesday in mid-October. I left the office at 2 p.m. because our biggest client decided to reschedule at the last minute. Classic. I figured I'd surprise Barrett. Maybe we'd catch an early dinner downtown. Ha. The universe really loves its irony, doesn't it? I parked in our driveway. Yeah. We live in one of those renovated brownstones in Lincoln Park that screams, "We're doing well, but not that well," and let myself in quietly. Force of habit. Barrett was always on conference calls, and I'd learned to move through our house like a ninja to avoid the death glare he'd throw when I interrupted his important business discussions. That's when I heard him. In his office. Door half closed, voice low but urgent. The kind of tone that makes your gut clench before your brain catches up. I need to end this before she figures it out. The timing's crucial here. Pause. I know. But if she finds out first, I'm screwed in the settlement. Her salary's almost double mine, and she's got documentation on everything. I stood there in our marble foyer, the one I'd insisted on during renovations because I'm apparently excellent at making sure my betrayal happens in aesthetically pleasing surroundings, feeling my blood pressure spike like I'd just downed 4 espressos. Barrett continued, oblivious. Sienna's already looking at apartments for us. Found a great place in River North. 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, close to her studio. Yeah, the kid would have his own room. The kid. I'm sorry, what? Barrett. Kids ruin careers and we're focusing on us. Ramsey had a kid? With someone named Sienna, who apparently had a studio, whatever that meant. My brain was doing that thing where it processes information approximately 3 beats behind reality. Like when you're watching a movie and the sound doesn't sync with the video. Except this was my life. And the audio was, "Your husband has a secret family." And the video was me standing in my own house, feeling like I'd wandered onto someone else's disaster. Barrett walked out of his office scrolling through his phone. And when he looked up and saw me, the man literally flinched. His phone almost went airborne. He actually stumbled backward, grabbed the doorframe, and went full statue mode. If deer in headlights was a person, he'd just won the championship. "Thea." His voice came out strangled. "You're home. Give this man a medal for stating the obvious." I just stood there with my briefcase, my sensible work pumps, and my apparently non-existent marriage, staring at him. I could have said a million things. Screamed, thrown something, demanded answers. Instead, I smiled. That same smile I use when opposing counsel thinks they've found a loophole in my client's taxes, and I'm about to demolish their entire argument with a single precedent. "Yep," I said, voice honey-sweet. "Surprise." Barrett's face went through about 15 emotions in 3 seconds. Panic, guilt, calculation, more panic. Then he tried for casual, which was like watching someone try to act natural while their pants are on fire. How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough?" I walked past him toward the kitchen, set my briefcase on the counter. "Long enough to hear about Sienna's excellent taste in River North apartments. And about the kid. Congratulations, by the way. When were you planning to mention your son? At Thanksgiving? Christmas? Our 10-year anniversary?" See? Here's what happens when you're a lawyer. You don't fall apart immediately. You compartmentalize. You file the emotional devastation under "deal with later," and you focus on information gathering. It's a superpower, really. A deeply unhealthy superpower that leads to stress eating and wine overconsumption. But still. Barrett opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He looked like a very guilty, very panicked fish. "Thea, I can explain." "Oh, I'm counting on it." I poured myself a glass of water because my hands needed something to do that wasn't strangling him. "But before you start, let me save us both some time. Don't insult me by saying it's not what it sounds like. Don't tell me you were going to tell me. And definitely don't say this just happened, because kids take approximately 9 months plus however old this one is, so the math doesn't work in your favor." He slumped against the counter. For a second, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then I remembered the whole secret child thing and the feeling evaporated faster than my respect for him. "His name is Oliver," Barrett said quietly. "He's 3. Sienna's a yoga instructor. We met at the gym 4 years ago. 4 years. 4 years. This man had been running a parallel life for 4 years, and I hadn't noticed. How was that possible? How do you not notice your husband has a whole entire child for 3 years? Then again, I worked 60-hour weeks. Barrett traveled constantly for property acquisitions. We were that couple who scheduled sex like business meetings and called it keeping the spark alive. We hadn't really seen each other in probably 2 years. We'd just been existing in the same space. God, we were such a cliché. You have a 3-year-old son, I repeated, because saying it out loud might make it feel real. Spoiler, it didn't. And you were planning to leave me for his mother, but you wanted to time it right for, what, tax purposes? Optimal settlement positioning? Barrett had the audacity to look offended. It's not like that. Then what's it like, Barrett? Explain it to me. Use small words if you need to. He ran his hand through his hair. That nervous tic he'd always had when he was in trouble. I'd seen it when he forgot our anniversary, when he made a bad investment, when he backed into my car in the driveway. Never thought I'd see it during the "I've been living a double life" conversation, but here we were. I didn't plan this, he started, which was already a terrible beginning. Sienna and I, it was supposed to be casual. Then she got pregnant, and she wanted to keep the baby. And I couldn't just abandon my kid. But you could abandon your wife? I thought I could handle both. Keep everyone happy. But it got complicated. Complicated, I echoed. You think it got complicated? Barrett, you have a secret child. You've been lying to me for 4 years. You've been planning to divorce me based on timing that benefits your financial situation. That's not complicated. That's calculated. He had nothing to say to that. Smart choice. I took a sip of water, buying myself time to think. My brain was simultaneously exploding and working overtime. The attorney part of me was already cataloging evidence, thinking about Illinois divorce law, considering asset division. The wife part of me, the part that still wore the wedding ring he'd put on my finger in that beautiful ceremony in Napa, was crumbling in real time. Here's what's going to happen, I said, voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. You're going to sleep in the guest room. Tomorrow, you're going to move to a hotel. And you're not going to touch any of our joint accounts, transfer any assets, or make any major purchases until I figure out what the hell I'm dealing with. Thea? No. I held up my hand. You don't get to Thea me right now. You had 4 years to Thea me, to tell me the truth, to give me the option to choose whether I wanted to stay in this marriage. You took that choice away from me, so now I'm taking the choices back. Got it? He nodded, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Good. He should feel small. He'd just revealed himself to be exactly that. I grabbed my briefcase and headed upstairs to our bedroom. My bedroom now, I guess. Behind me, I heard Barrett still standing in the kitchen, probably calculating his next move. Always calculating that one. Inside the bedroom, I locked the door, set down my briefcase, and sat on the edge of our California king bed. The one we'd picked out together 3 years ago. The one where we'd talked about our future, made plans, had lazy Sunday mornings before reality and work schedules took over. And then, finally, alone in the silence, I let myself feel it. The betrayal, the humiliation, the rage, all of it crashed over me like Lake Michigan during a storm. But here's the thing about being a tax attorney. I'm really, really good at finding loopholes, exploiting weaknesses, and building airtight cases. Barrett had just handed me the biggest case of my career. He wanted a strategic exit? Fine. I'd show him strategic. I'd show him exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman who spent 3 years of law school learning how to destroy people's arguments and 10 years in practice perfecting it. I pulled out my laptop. Time to do what I do best. Research, document, and prepare for total war. Because if Barrett thought he was good at timing, he was about to learn that I'd been counting down to his downfall from the moment I heard him say, "Before she figures it out." Joke's on you, honey. She figured it out. The next 3 days were a masterclass in acting normal while internally planning the legal equivalent of a nuclear strike. Barrett moved to a hotel Thursday morning, the Embassy Suites downtown, which felt appropriate since our marriage had apparently been operating on diplomatic relations for years. He tried to talk to me before he left. Stood there in our foyer with his hastily packed suitcase, looking like a sad puppy who'd been caught eating the trash. "Thea, can we just—" No. I didn't even look up from my coffee. I was doing the crossword puzzle like my entire life hadn't imploded. Multitasking. "I want you to know I never meant to hurt you." I finally looked at him then. "Barrett, you had a child with another woman and hid it from me for 3 years. Your intent is irrelevant. Your actions are what count. And your actions are telling me you're a liar, a cheat, and apparently not great at operational security, considering I found out by coming home early on a random Wednesday." He flinched. "Good. What are you going to do? Get a divorce, obviously. Beyond that, you'll find out when I'm ready for you to find out. Now, if you'll excuse me, 7 down is really bothering me." He left. I finished my crossword. Then I called my best friend Juliet, who's a family law attorney at one of the top firms in Chicago. If I was going to burn Barrett's life down, I was going to do it legally and thoroughly. "So," Jules said, when I'd finished explaining everything over the phone, "Barrett has a secret 3-year-old named Oliver with a yoga instructor named Sienna. He was planning to leave you but wanted strategic timing for the divorce settlement, and you found out because you came home early from work. That's the Cliff's Notes version, yeah. Thea, this is the most dramatic thing that's happened to you since you accidentally wore 2 different shoes to court. In my defense, they were both black. One was a pump, one was a flat. Not the point, Jules." She laughed, but then her voice turned serious. "Okay, here's what we're doing. I'm recommending you to my colleague Marcus Bennett. He's the best divorce attorney in Chicago, and he's absolutely ruthless in a way that I think you'll appreciate right now. He'll destroy Barrett, legally speaking. I like the sound of that. Also, we need to lock down all your financials. You said Barrett's a developer? Yeah, mostly commercial properties. He's got a few projects going right now. Then he's probably got assets you don't even know about. We need a forensic accountant. I'll recommend someone. But Thea, this is going to get messy. Are you ready for that?" I thought about Barrett's face when he realized I'd heard everything. The way he'd tried to calculate his way out of it. The fact that he'd built an entire secret life and thought he could just discard me when it was convenient. "Jules, I've been ready since Wednesday at 2:17 p.m. Marcus Bennett's office was exactly what you'd expect from Chicago's most notorious divorce attorney. Sleek, modern, with a view of the Chicago River that probably cost more per month than most people's mortgages. The man himself was in his mid-50s, silver hair, sharp suit, and eyes that said he'd seen every terrible thing a spouse could do and was no longer surprised by human depravity. I liked him immediately. "Mrs. Ramsey," he said, shaking my hand, "Jules speaks highly of you. Says you're a tax attorney? Corporate tax litigation? Yes. Then you understand that divorce is war by other means." He gestured for me to sit. "Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out, no matter how small or embarrassing you think it is." I told him. All of it. The phone call I'd overheard, the 3-year-old son, Sienna the yoga instructor, the River North apartment, Barrett's strategic timing. When I finished, Marcus was making notes on his legal pad, nodding occasionally. "Okay," he said finally. "Here's the good news. Your husband is an idiot. The bad news for him, anyway. Good news for you. He's been planning this divorce, which means there's a trail. Texts, emails, financial transactions. He's been sloppy because he didn't think you'd find out yet." "How do you know he's been sloppy?" Marcus smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Because if he'd been smart, he would have already moved assets, changed passwords, destroyed evidence. "The fact that you still have access to joint accounts tells me he hasn't started his endgame yet. He was planning to, but you caught him early. That's leverage." "What kind of leverage?" "The kind that means we get to dictate terms. But first, we need to gather evidence. Everything. I'm going to have you work with a forensic accountant and a private investigator. They're going to find out exactly what Barrett's been doing with his money, where he's been spending his time, and whether there are any other surprises we need to know about. You think there might be more? Mrs. Ramsey, in my experience, when someone's been living a double life for 4 years, there's always more." The forensic accountant's name was Eloise Park, and she had the kind of focused intensity that made me think she probably found tax fraud in her sleep and woke up excited about it. We met at a coffee shop in the Loop because she said she Thinks better surrounded by caffeine and chaos. So, she said, pulling out a laptop that looked like it could hack government databases. Let's talk about your husband's finances. Walk me through what you know. I explained Barrett's real estate development business, the properties he'd been working on, his typical income. Eloise listened, typing occasionally, asking clarifying questions. Do you have access to his business accounts? Some. We keep separate business finances, but we have joint personal accounts. Good. I'll need login information for anything you can access. Also, credit card statements, tax returns for the last 5 years, any property deeds, investment portfolios, basically, anything financial. I can get all of that. Perfect. Now here's what I'm looking for. Unusual transactions, cash withdrawals, transfers to accounts you don't recognize, purchases that don't match his stated lifestyle. If he's been supporting another family, he's been paying for it somehow. And if he's been preparing to divorce you, he might have been hiding assets. Over the next week, Eloise and I met 3 more times. Each time, she'd found something new. Small things at first. Cash withdrawals that didn't match Barrett's usual patterns. A recurring payment to something called Serenity Wellness Studio. Sienna's yoga studio, it turned out. Then bigger things. A bank account I didn't know about with over $80,000 in it. Property holdings listed under an LLC I'd never heard of. Your husband, Eloise said during our 4th meeting, has been systematically moving money for at least 2 years. Not huge amounts at any one time. He's smarter than that, but consistently. It adds up. I estimate he's hidden approximately $300,000 in assets so far. I felt my jaw literally drop. $300,000? Give or take. And that's just what I've found so far. There might be more. $300,000. That was my annual salary. That was years of savings. That was supposed to be our future, and Barrett had been siphoning it off like a corporate embezzler. I called Marcus immediately. He hid $300,000? Marcus's voice had taken on that gleeful tone that lawyers get when they realize they have an airtight case. Thea, this is perfect. Illinois is an equitable distribution state, which means assets are supposed to be divided fairly. If Barrett's been hiding assets, that's dissipation of marital property. Not only do you get a bigger share to compensate, but judges hate that. It makes him look dishonest and manipulative. Because he is dishonest and manipulative. Exactly. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to let him think he's getting away with it. Don't confront him yet. Let him keep digging his own grave. The private investigator is also gathering information on his relationship with Sienna. Once we have everything documented, we file for divorce and hit him with all of it at once. How long will that take? 2, maybe 3 more weeks. Can you wait that long? I thought about Barrett in his hotel room, probably texting Sienna about how his mean wife was being unreasonable. I thought about Oliver, a 3-year-old who'd done nothing wrong but had a father who was terrible at being a human. I thought about Sienna, who might not even know I existed until recently. I can wait, I said. I'm good at patience when I know there's a payoff coming. The private investigator's report arrived 2 weeks later, and it was comprehensive. Barrett and Sienna had been together for 4 years. They'd met at her yoga studio when she was teaching a executive wellness class that Barrett's company had sponsored. The relationship had started as an affair, became serious when she got pregnant, and had basically been a second marriage ever since. Barrett had been supporting Sienna and Oliver financially. The yoga studio didn't pay great, apparently, and had been planning to move in with them officially once the divorce was finalized. He'd told Sienna that he and I were separated but still living together for financial reasons, which was a creative rewrite of reality. The investigator had also found something else. Barrett had been telling people in his professional circle that he was divorced. Colleagues, clients, potential investors. He'd been operating as a single man in his business life while still being married to me in his personal life. I showed the report to Marcus. This keeps getting better, Marcus said. Or worse, depending on your perspective. But for our purposes, better. We can demonstrate that Barrett has been systematically lying, hiding assets, and planning to divorce you in a way that would benefit him financially while leaving you in the dark. That's not going to play well in court. When do we file? Monday. I'll have the papers drawn up by end of business today. We're going to ask for temporary orders that freeze all assets, require Barrett to pay temporary support, and give you exclusive possession of the marital home. Then we're going to discovery the hell out of him and expose every single thing he's been hiding. I felt something in my chest that I hadn't felt in weeks. Satisfaction. Not happiness. That was still a long way off. But satisfaction that Barrett's carefully constructed plan was about to collapse spectacularly. Do it, I said. Marcus grinned. With pleasure. The divorce papers were served to Barrett on a Monday morning at 8:43 a.m. I know this because the process server texted me a photo of Barrett's face when he opened the door of his hotel room. The man looked like he'd been slapped with a frozen fish. By 9:15 a.m., my phone was ringing. Barrett's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called 4 more times. I ignored all of them. Finally, he texted, "Barrett, we need to talk about this. You're being unreasonable." Me. "No, I'm being an attorney. There's a difference." Barrett. "Thea, please, can we at least discuss this like adults?" Me. "You mean like adults who tell their spouses they have secret children? That kind of adult conversation? Because I'm pretty sure we missed that opportunity 4 years ago." He didn't respond to that. The temporary orders hearing was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, Marcus and his team were building what he called the most beautiful case of marital misconduct I've seen in 15 years. Eloise had finished her forensic analysis and found even more hidden assets. An investment account in Barrett's mother's name that he controlled. Another property in Indiana listed under his business partner's LLC. Total hidden assets? Marcus told me over the phone. Approximately $485,000. Plus, he's been underreporting his income to you. His development company is doing much better than he's been saying. $485,000. I sat in my office, my real office, where I did actual work and didn't lie to my colleagues about my marital status, and felt the full weight of Barrett's betrayal sink in. It wasn't just the affair. It wasn't just Oliver. It was the systematic, calculated theft of our shared future. But here's where things got interesting. Because while I was planning to legally demolish Barrett, I got a call from an unexpected source. "Is this Thea Ramsey?" A woman's voice, young, uncertain. "Yes." "Who's this?" "My name is Sienna Cole. We need to talk." I should have hung up. Marcus would have told me to hang up. Talking to your husband's mistress before a divorce is finalized is generally a bad idea. But curiosity won out. "I'm listening. Can we meet? In person? There's something you need to know about Barrett. Something I just found out." 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Sienna Cole in a Starbucks in Wicker Park. She was exactly what you'd expect. 28, blonde, yoga-toned, wearing Lululemon and looking stressed. Oliver, the 3-year-old who'd inadvertently blown up my marriage, was with Barrett, apparently. "Thank you for meeting me," Sienna said. She looked like she'd been crying. "I know this is weird. Beyond weird. That's one word for it. I need you to know. I didn't know you and Barrett were still together. Not really together. He told me you were separated. That you'd both agreed to stay married on paper until some business deal went through. But that you were basically roommates. He showed me paperwork that looked official. Paperwork? A separation agreement. Signed by both of you. Dated 2 years ago. I felt my blood pressure spike. "Sienna, I never signed a separation agreement. We were never separated. Barrett has been lying to you." Her face crumbled. I knew it. God, I knew something was off. But I wanted to believe him. We have a son together. I thought we were building a life. Despite myself, I felt a twinge of sympathy. We'd both been played by the same man. "Why did you want to meet me?" Sienna pulled out her phone, opened her messages, and slid it across the table. "Because of this." I read the conversation. It was between Barrett and someone named Jade. Recent messages, very recent, from yesterday. Barrett: "Once the Thea situation is handled, we can move forward with our plans." Jade: "And what about S and the kid?" Barrett: "Manageable. She's been useful, but she's getting clingy. I'll figure something out." Jade: "You always do. Can't wait to finally be together properly." Barrett. Soon. Promise. Love you. I stared at the phone. Then at Sienna. Who's Jade? His business partner's sister. I did some digging after I saw these messages. They've been involved for about 6 months. He's been telling her he's leaving me. The room spun slightly. Barrett hadn't just had one affair. He'd had at least 2. Possibly more. Sienna and I, both of us, were just way stations in Barrett's endless quest for… what? Validation? Variety? A complete inability to be a decent human being? Why are you showing me this? I asked. Sienna's jaw tightened. Because Barrett doesn't get to blow up our lives and walk away unscathed. I have a 3-year-old son who deserves a father who's honest. You have years of marriage that he threw away. And Jade? She has no idea what she's getting into. Barrett needs to face consequences for once in his life. I looked at this woman, this yoga instructor who'd been sleeping with my husband for 4 years, who had his child, who'd believed his lies, and felt something unexpected. Respect. She was angrier than I'd seen anyone in weeks, and she was channeling it into something useful. What do you want to do? I asked. I want to help you destroy him. Legally, financially, socially, everything. He's been playing all of us, and I'm done being played. I sat back in my chair. Marcus would have a stroke if he knew I was having this conversation. But sometimes the best legal strategy requires unconventional allies. Tell me everything you know about Barrett's finances, I said. And I mean everything. Over the next week, Sienna became an unexpected asset in my divorce case. She had information I didn't, details about Barrett's business dealings, cash payments he'd made, properties he'd mentioned buying that weren't on any official records. She'd also kept meticulous records of every dollar he'd given her, every promise he'd made, every lie he'd told. Marcus was initially horrified when I told him I'd been meeting with Sienna. Then he saw her documentation and changed his tune. This is actually brilliant, he admitted. She's essentially a witness to Barrett's financial misconduct, and if she's willing to testify about the money he gave her, we can trace where it came from. Most of it was probably marital funds. She'll testify, I confirmed. She's motivated. What about the Jade situation? We're going to let that play out naturally. If Barrett's planning to leave Sienna for Jade, he'll eventually show his hand, and when he does, it'll demonstrate a pattern of behavior that no judge will look kindly on. The temporary orders hearing was fascinating, in the way that watching a car accident is fascinating. Barrett showed up with his attorney, some corporate guy who clearly didn't specialize in family law, expecting a routine procedural hearing. What he got was me, Marcus, and a nuclear bomb's worth of evidence. Marcus presented the forensic accounting report, the hidden assets, the secret bank accounts, the underreported income. Barrett's attorney tried to sputter objections, but the documentation was ironclad. Then Marcus brought up the affair with Sienna, the secret child, and chef's kiss, the texts between Barrett and Jade that proved he'd been juggling multiple relationships. Barrett's face went through more colors than a mood ring. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Justice Kwan, who'd apparently seen every terrible thing divorcing spouses could do to each other, was not amused. "Mr. Ramsey," she said, voice dripping with contempt, "you've hidden assets, maintained extramarital relationships, misrepresented your financial situation, and lied to multiple people about your marital status. I'm granting Mrs. Ramsey's request for temporary orders. All assets are frozen. You'll pay temporary maintenance and reimburse her for half of what you've hidden. And Mr. Ramsey, I'm going to be watching your case very closely going forward." It was beautiful. It was poetry. It was everything I'd been working toward. Barrett left the courtroom looking like he'd been hit by a truck. I left feeling like I'd just won the first battle in a war I was absolutely going to win. Outside the courthouse, Marcus turned to me. That went better than expected. What happens now? Now we prepare for the final trial. We gather more evidence, depose Barrett and his associates, and build a case that ensures you get what you deserve, both financially and in terms of vindication. How long? 3 to 4 months, probably. Think you can wait that long? I thought about Barrett's face in that courtroom. The panic. The realization that his carefully constructed lies had collapsed. the understanding that he'd underestimated me catastrophically. "Marcus," I said, "I've waited 8 years for Barrett to be honest with me. I can wait 4 months to watch him pay for not being honest." He grinned. "You know, when Jules recommended you to me, she said you were one of the smartest attorneys she knew. She was right." "Thanks, though I'm pretty sure I'm about to win the award for most dramatic divorce case of the year at the next Chicago Bar Association meeting. You'd be surprised. This barely cracks the top 10. We went our separate ways. I headed back to my office where my actual job, the one that didn't involve destroying my ex-husband, awaited. But before I got in my car, I checked my phone. There was a message from Sienna. "Sienna, heard it went well today. Good. He deserves everything coming to him. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Me. We were both victims of the same con man, but we're not victims anymore. We're plaintiffs. Big difference. Sienna. I like that. Plaintiffs, not victims. Me. Exactly. See you at the deposition." I got in my car and drove home, to my house now, since Barrett was barred from the property by court order, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Powerful. Barrett had thought he could control the narrative, the timeline, the outcome. He'd thought wrong. And the best part? We were just getting started. The next 3 months were a masterclass in legal warfare. Marcus and his team deposed everyone. Barrett, his business partner, his accountant, even poor Jade, who showed up looking shell-shocked and left looking traumatized after realizing she'd been dating a man with more red flags than a Soviet parade. Each deposition revealed something new and terrible. Barrett had been embezzling from his own company to fund his various relationships. He'd lied on loan applications. He'd misrepresented property values to investors. The man was basically a one-person crime wave wearing Patagonia vests and expensive watches. But the real vindication came during Barrett's deposition. Marcus eviscerated him. For 6 hours, he walked Barrett through every lie, every hidden account, every affair. By the end, Barrett looked like he'd aged 10 years. "Mr. Ramsey," Marcus said, voice casual like he was asking about the weather, "can you explain why you told Sienna Cole that you were separated from your wife when you were, in fact, still cohabiting and presenting yourself as married?" I wanted to spare her feelings. By lying to her? It's complicated. Is it also complicated that you told Jade Mercier you were single? And that you told investors you were divorced? And that you told your wife that you weren't having affairs? That's a lot of complications, Mr. Ramsey. Almost like you have a pattern of dishonesty. Barrett's attorney tried to object, but the damage was done. Marcus had methodically established that Barrett was a liar, a cheat, and an unreliable narrator of his own life. The coup de grace came when Eloise presented her final forensic analysis. She'd found everything, every hidden account, every sketchy transaction, every penny Barrett had tried to squirrel away. The total came to just over $600,000 in hidden or misappropriated marital assets. $600,000. "Your Honor," Marcus said during the final trial 3 weeks later, "this isn't just a case of marital infidelity. This is systematic financial fraud perpetrated by a man who viewed his wife as an obstacle to his lifestyle rather than a partner." Mr. Ramsey has demonstrated a pattern of deception, manipulation, and self-interest that warrants punitive measures. Justice Kwan listened to all the evidence, reviewed the documentation, and then delivered a ruling that was so satisfying I almost cried. "I'm awarding Mrs. Ramsey 75% of all marital assets, including all hidden assets. Mr. Ramsey will pay her attorney's fees, which total approximately $87,000. He will also pay maintenance for 3 years. And Mr. Ramsey? I'm referring your conduct to the State Bar and to the IRS for potential investigation. This level of deception suggests patterns that may extend beyond this marriage." Barrett's face was ashen. His attorney looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. I sat there, next to Marcus, trying to maintain professional composure when what I really wanted to do was fist pump like I'd just scored the winning touchdown. 75% of assets. Attorney's fees covered. Maintenance for 3 years. And, the cherry on top, referrals to organizations that could make Barrett's life significantly more complicated. It was perfect. It was beautiful. It was exactly what I'd been working toward for 4 months. Outside the courtroom, Marcus shook my hand. "Congratulations, Thea. That's one of the best outcomes I've seen in years. Couldn't have done it without you. Or Eloise. Or, weirdly, Sienna. Speaking of which..." He gestured down the hall where Sienna was standing with her own attorney. She'd filed for child support and paternity establishment, and from what I'd heard, she was getting everything she deserved. Barrett would be paying support for Oliver until he was 18. I walked over to her. We'd developed an odd friendship over the past few months. Trauma bonding, my therapist called it. We'd probably never be close, but we had a mutual respect forged in the fires of Barrett's spectacular dishonesty. "You won," she said simply. "We both won," I corrected. "You're getting child support and full custody. That's a victory." "Yeah. Oliver deserves better than Barrett anyway. Hopefully he'll grow up knowing that actions have consequences." She paused. "For what it's worth, I'm glad I met you. Not the circumstances, obviously, but you showed me what it looks like to stand up for yourself, to demand what you're worth. Right back at you. You could have stayed silent. You chose to help instead." We hugged, which was surreal considering 4 months ago I'd wanted to throw things at her. Funny how life works. The fallout from the divorce rippled through Barrett's life like an earthquake through a house of cards. His business partnership dissolved when his partner discovered the embezzlement. 2 investors pulled out of projects when they learned about his dishonesty. The country club, his beloved country club where he'd pretended to play tennis while actually having an affair, quietly suggested he might be happier elsewhere after word spread about the divorce details. Jade, predictably, dumped him approximately 30 seconds after the trial ended. I heard through the grapevine that she left him a voicemail that consisted entirely of creative insults questioning his intelligence, integrity, and anatomical adequacy. Good for her. Barrett ended up moving to a 1-bedroom apartment in Schaumburg, a far cry from our Lincoln Park brownstone or the River North luxury apartment he'd been planning. His car got repossessed after he fell behind on payments. His business limped along but never recovered its former success. Meanwhile, I thrived. The brownstone sold for an excellent price. Turned out Lincoln Park real estate was still hot, and I bought a gorgeous condo in the Gold Coast with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Started dating a fellow attorney named Quentin who thought my divorce story was the most impressive legal demolition I've ever heard, and seemed to find competence attractive, which was refreshing. I also got a promotion at my firm, partner track. Turns out, channeling rage into work productivity is an excellent career strategy. My billable hours had never been higher. But the real satisfaction came 6 months post-divorce when I ran into Barrett at a Whole Foods. He was in the checkout line with a sad little basket containing frozen dinners and cheap beer. I had fresh flowers, good cheese, expensive wine, and ingredients for a dinner party I was hosting that weekend. He saw me first. I watched him recognize me, watched the parade of emotions cross his face. Embarrassment, regret, something that might have been longing. I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just nothing. "Thea," he said as I walked past with my overflowing cart. "You look great." "Thanks." I genuinely couldn't think of anything else to say to him. He'd become irrelevant to my life so completely that seeing him was like running into a person you vaguely remembered from college but couldn't quite place. I wanted to say, he started. "Barrett, don't." I kept my voice neutral. "Whatever you want to say. It's too late and I don't need to hear it. You made your choices. I made mine. We're done." I left him standing there in the checkout line looking diminished. Not because I'd destroyed him, though I had, legally speaking, but because he'd destroyed himself. He'd built his entire life on lies and manipulation, and when it finally collapsed, he had nothing left to hold up. As I loaded groceries into my car, paid for with my money, registered in my name only, I felt something unexpected. Gratitude. Not for Barrett, obviously, but for the whole terrible experience. It had forced me to examine my life, recognize what I'd been tolerating, and rebuild something better. The woman who'd come home early that Wednesday in October and overheard her husband's betrayal? She'd been someone who worked 80-hour weeks, never questioned her marriage, and assumed loyalty because she'd been loyal. The woman loading groceries into her car 6 months later? She worked reasonable hours, had standards, and knew exactly what she was worth. That's the funny thing about betrayal. It can destroy you or it can refine you. Barrett thought it would destroy me. Joke's on him. It just made me sharper. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I found myself at a rooftop bar in River North with Juliet, celebrating her birthday. The Chicago skyline glittered around us. Lake Michigan stretched dark and infinite beyond. And I was on my third old-fashioned feeling philosophical in that way you do when good alcohol meets good company. "Can I tell you something weird?" I said to Jules. "Weirder than your ex-husband having a secret family and multiple affairs while embezzling from his own company? Different kind of weird. I think I'm grateful it all happened." Jules raised her eyebrows. "The Barrett situation? You're grateful for that dumpster fire?" "Not grateful it happened exactly. Grateful for what I learned from it." I swirled my drink, watching the ice catch the light. I spent 8 years in a marriage where I was working 80 hours a week, assuming everything was fine because I was too busy to notice it wasn't. Barrett's betrayal forced me to actually look at my life and realize how much I'd been settling for. You weren't settling. You were succeeding. Partner track at 36 is impressive. Professionally, sure. But personally, I was half asleep, just going through motions. Now, I'm awake. I'm present. I'm building a life I actually want instead of one that just happens to me. Jules clinked her glass against mine. "Look at you. Growing as a person. I'm proud. Also, revenge is surprisingly therapeutic. Highly recommend legally destroying someone who wronged you. And there's the Thea I know." She laughed. "Whatever happened with Sienna? We still text occasionally. She's doing well. Oliver's 4 now, thriving in preschool. She started her own yoga studio. Turns out Barrett's child support is substantial when you've documented everything and have a good attorney. She's dating someone new, a teacher. Says he's boring in all the right ways. And Barrett?" I shrugged. "Last I heard, he's still in Schaumburg, still trying to rebuild his business. The IRS thing didn't help. Turns out tax evasion is frowned upon." "Who knew?" I grinned. "He lost his real estate license for 6 months, which for a developer is basically a death sentence. Had to work construction for a while. Ouch." "Yeah? Consequences are inconvenient like that." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city lights shimmer. Chicago on a perfect October evening is magical. That brief window when the weather's still warm enough for rooftop bars, but cool enough that you're not melting into your seat. The kind of night that makes you forget about the brutal winters and remember why you actually chose to live in a city where the wind has a personal vendetta against your face 6 months a year. "You know what I learned?" I said eventually. "People always talk about closure like it's this thing someone gives you. The person who wronged you apologizes, explains, makes it right, and then you get closure. But that's garbage. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you create for yourself." Deep thoughts at rooftop bars. This is quality content. I'm serious. Barrett never apologized. Not really. He tried that day at Whole Foods, but it was hollow. Just words to make himself feel better. And I realized I didn't need his apology. Didn't need him to understand what he'd done wrong. I just needed to decide I was done letting him take up space in my head. Jules studied me. "And are you? Done?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I am. He's just this person I used to know who turned out to be terrible. Like a bad movie you walked out of halfway through. You don't spend years thinking about that movie. You just move on to better ones. That's surprisingly healthy. I have a very good therapist. Costs a fortune, but worth every penny. Therapy paid for by Barrett's settlement money? Obviously. Felt appropriate. We ordered another round of drinks. The night was warm. The company was perfect. And my life had rebuilt itself into something better than what I'd lost. Not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. But mine. Genuinely, authentically mine in a way it hadn't been for years. My phone buzzed. Text from Quentin asking if I wanted to grab brunch tomorrow. I smiled and texted back, yes. New boyfriend treating you well? Jules asked. He's great. Emotionally available, honest, has all his shit together. It's wild. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, but my therapist says that's trauma response, and I should work on accepting that not everyone is secretly terrible. Reasonable advice. Who knew that basic human decency would feel like winning the lottery after Barrett? Jules laughed, but then got serious. Real talk, though. Are you happy? I considered the question. Happy. What a complicated word. Was I deliriously joyful every moment? No. Did I still have days where I felt bitter about the years I'd wasted? Sure. Did I sometimes lie awake at night wondering what signs I'd missed? What I could have done differently? Occasionally? But was I happy? Yeah, I was. I'm happy, I said finally. Not because everything's perfect, but because I'm living a life I chose instead of one that just happened to me. I'm dating someone who respects me. I have work I'm good at. I have friends who show up when I need them. I have a view of Lake Michigan and a closet full of clothes that make me feel confident and a therapist who calls me on my bullshit. That's happiness. Not the movie version, the real version. I'll drink to that. We clinked glasses again. Around us, Chicago hummed with Friday night energy. People laughing, music drifting up from street level, the city alive and vibrant and full of possibility. Somewhere in Schaumburg, Barrett was probably having a significantly less pleasant evening. Maybe scrolling through social media, seeing updates about my life. Maybe regretting his choices. Maybe still trying to justify them to himself. I didn't know, didn't care. He'd become irrelevant to my story. Just a chapter that taught me valuable lessons about boundaries, self-worth, and the importance of actually paying attention to your own life. The best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's living so well they become an afterthought. Barrett had wanted to leave me for a better life. Instead, I'd left him behind for mine. You know what's funny? I said to Jules as we prepared to leave. Barrett thought he was the smart one, the one in control, the one who'd planned everything perfectly. But he forgot the most important rule of any strategy. What's that? I grinned. Never underestimate a woman who knows exactly how much you're worth and has access to your tax returns. Jules burst out laughing. That should be on a t-shirt. Or a legal brief. I could cite it as precedent. We left the rooftop bar arm in arm. Two women in our 30s who'd learned that life rarely goes according to plan. But that didn't mean you couldn't write a better ending. The city spread out before us, full of possibility and second chances and futures that were ours to build. Barrett had taken a lot from me. 8 years, $600,000 he'd tried to hide, the comfortable fiction of a happy marriage. But he'd also given me something, inadvertently, permission to become someone new, someone stronger, someone who didn't settle for dishonesty disguised as partnership. Was that worth 8 years of my life? Probably not. But since I couldn't get those years back, I might as well extract value from the lessons they taught me. And the biggest lesson? When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Then hire an excellent attorney and make sure they regret underestimating you. Life's too short for bad marriages and hidden assets, but it's exactly long enough for epic legal victories and waterfront condos. Turns out karma doesn't need much help when you've got good documentation and a forensic accountant with a vendetta against financial fraud. Barrett wanted a strategic exit from our marriage. I gave him an exit, all right. Just not the one he planned. The view from my new life is pretty spectacular. Thanks for the settlement money, Barrett. I'm putting it to excellent use.